Your search for unbeatable internet speeds is over. Visit Docomo Pacific today and sign up for as low as $60 a month so you can experience our fast, reliable internet speeds for yourself. Docomo Pacific, better together.
This is my first time I've brought together the press for a conference, so I appreciate you guys being responsive over email. At the outset, Clement Bermudez Jr., I'm the Executive Director for the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors. I also serve as a Special Advisor of the Department of Commerce, CNMI Department of Commerce. We have our two co-chairs here of our council today, Lieutenant Governor Dennis Mendoza and Guerrero from the private sector. And we're happy to answer any questions. I will say that the council staff will work on a readout from today's meeting to issue to the press along with a summary of this press conference, and I'll send that out to the press as soon as possible. But yeah, we'll take any questions.
Can they include a list of everybody who is present?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
So what are the main takeaways today? This is the first meeting. How are you tackling the economy?
So,
Wow.
let me just start. That's really loud, right? But so today's intent really was for us to come together and just kind of formalize the governor's directive for the Economic Council to kick off. So what we did for the first meeting was bring everybody in so that we can, put faces to the names, names to the face, and get familiar with everybody, and then launch some of the priorities. And I'll allow the co-chair to explain some of our priorities. But the intent again is for the governor's council to attack these issues with our economic activity. We keep talking about how we're so pressed with our finances. So the intent today is for us to come together, get all these ideas down, and move forward.
The GCA is not new to us. This has been already in place since the time of former Governor Rob Torres. So what is the new that you're tackling, and what are the things that have been there that you are catching up to?
So if I may, sorry Cole, but so you're right. There's been an economic council for years now. As a matter of fact, I found out today that since 1981 there was actually a council since then. So with that, what I wanted to say is that the council that's designed today is not necessarily going to reinvent the wheel. What we want to do is we want to use all these resources that's already in place and try and narrow down the ideas and work from there. That's the intent. If I
Yep. Yes. Thank you. First officers and Tiruwami, Lieutenant Governor Minjola. I want to thank Governor Apteng as well for reestablishing the Governor's Council of Economic Advisors. As many of you are aware, the council was formed by executive order in May of 2020, right on the onset of the pandemic. I was fortunate to be a part of that council, the first GSEA, and during the council I've spent, and many of the council members spent, hundreds of hours of our time, volunteer time, to put together a lot of plans and initiatives, really fleshed through concepts, some new, some old, like I said, concepts that have been around since the 80s, whether it's about diversification of our economy, how to streamline government services, for example. And so the emphasis for the council, this new council, is to draw upon all the plans that are already out there. We have a lot of plans. And as the Lieutenant Governor said, now is the time to execute. We can't just be talking about these plans and ideas. We need to start prioritizing and pick the low-hanging fruit. What can we do in the next 30 days? Maybe some require executive orders. What kind of legislation can we pursue with the help of the legislature and cooperation of the legislature? And so with the council now being formed, we've established some initial committees. One is tourism, infrastructure, and sports committee.
Yep.
The next one, and in no order of particular importance, labor and workforce development committee. Third, we have a domestic policy and government services committee. And last but not least, economic diversification committee. And these are the four standing committees. And within those committees, there could be subcommittees. Those committees are chaired by various individuals on the council. But the composition of those committees will include people from both public and private sector. There are a lot of people that have already reached out to Lieutenant Governor and myself to say, how can we help? Which is great. It's a great feeling that people are wanting to help, wanting to roll up their sleeves. Again, this is all volunteer. This is a nonpartisan council. when Governor Apatang and Lieutenant Governor assumed office, suddenly, a few months ago, the first thing they did was how can we collaborate with the private sector, which I'm a big fan of, right? As many of you know me, I also represent the Saipan Chamber of Commerce and small businesses oftentimes as a small business owner, but it's very important. I cannot emphasize the need to really collaborate and share ideas, right? Sometimes we may disagree on the approach, but at the end of the day, we're all on Team CNMI. And if we don't have that open dialogue and trust that, we're trying to do the right thing, then we'll never move forward, or it'll be hard to move forward, right?
Do we know which sector is going to be affected in the first 30 days? Is it airlines? Is someone negotiating with the airlines?
I'll give a prelude. So the tourism committee, which is a big committee, it's tourism, infrastructure, and sports. But that's one of the initiatives that we'll be announcing fairly soon to the public, is how we plan to tackle our our number one industry, which is tourism, right? Which includes air service development. How bringing in new airlines and how to fix up our island that's already beautiful, but infrastructure repairs need to be made, among other things. And so there'll be a lot of initiatives, and we'll be our goal with the council is to be as transparent and be open. We're looking to create a website which will put our resources there for the public to see and engage the community so that they know that what we're doing is out there, and also to invite the public on how they can participate and support us. I hope I answered your question.
Let me just tag on to that. And also, this is not to take away from the existing government agencies that are actually negotiating currently. MVA has already been doing that. Again, the Governor's Economic Council is really designed to really give the governor advice on a lot of these initiatives that we can push forward. So this is not necessarily to say that the government is not doing anything. I'm sure that MVA currently has multiple negotiations that they're having to try and improve our air services to the CNMI. So I just wanted to add that, because I don't want the perception of, the Governor's Economic Council is the main entity that's going to push a lot of these initiatives. As a matter of fact, a lot of the stuff that we're already doing are already in place, but we're just, again, trying to recommend better ways to streamline it using a lot of these, the private sector, the subject matter experts, some of the ideas that are going to come in. And that's where we come in as a group to try and figure out a way to make it better so that the CNMI becomes a prominent investment opportunity for investors.
Yep, Lieutenant Governor, we saw Derek was here from CETA. Are you going to be having folks from MVA join you, or folks from CPA, folks who are doing this?
That's the plan. So anytime we deal with a specific subject that deals with an entity, the council will be calling those bodies in so that we're not just redoing the work, right? If they have information that they already, they've done the work, then sometimes it's just as easy as just asking for those information so that we can have the information at hand to generate whatever product we're trying to create here. So yes, CETA was here. We have other private entities that we want to bring in, but of course, today's intent was just to formalize and officially launch the group.
How are the changes in the membership this time? I mean, maybe some other folks that are members before may not be available today, or was it a decision? Can you clarify on the membership?
Yeah, so I will say that we have a great slate of people, and many members that were actually on the previous Governor's Council of Economic Advisors.
Yes.
We have that institutional knowledge. We've also brought in some new key players in areas of the digital economy, for example, digital currency. We have Vinar Armani on our council, who also kind of works on trade issues. I just want to go back to your question real quick on bringing in these stakeholders, both government stakeholders and private stakeholders. I think we find that that's very important. I'd like to just direct everyone to the original EO that kind of created this council. And the intent was that we brought in agencies to kind of help shape these policies and these proposals to the governor's office. We want to reduce barriers in government. The Lieutenant Governor recognizes that. I can recognize that as a government employee, that there are barriers in our government that need to be reduced to kind of streamline that process. So that's the original intent of the EO. And yeah, we hope to execute, and we hope to execute fast. But the council members were announced, and I can get you a list. We added a new council member, Mark Ballman, former Commerce Secretary, who's representing the Northern Islands, and he came on board last week and was able to join us this morning. So just a few new players, but also members that were quite integral to the products that you could see on this table today, the recovery roadmap, and the previous iteration of this council.
Can you share the timeline, given that the next election is a year away? What is the timeline, and what are the benchmarks? Are you setting a 3-month goal, 6-month goal, and then ultimately, the next administration, whoever it is?
We have yet to flesh out our timelines, but that's very important. And this council is regardless of election cycle. This council and previous councils have been designed so that the work continues, and that's one of the the challenges that our community has faced. That when the administration changes, then the policies change, and it shouldn't. Right? Good ideas should still survive any administration. Administration change should just be able to take on the work and continue, maybe steer it a different direction. But at the end of the day, a lot of the concepts have been around since, like I said, like the 80s, right? They're not new concepts. We just need the.
So if I can add on, if you see the Economic Council of 2020 actually produced products that we're going to be reviewing. So the intent here is really not to make this political. As a matter of fact, I mentioned that in today's meeting, that the intent here is to build a product that doesn't matter who wins the election. I mean, they review this product and they see that it's beneficial. I'm sure they will implement it, and I would hope that they implement it. But the point that we're trying to do is that we're trying to attack or face those issues that are, that can be handled within the next 30 days. For example, permitting issues. For example, zoning issues. Right? These are a lot of conversations that we're hearing in the community. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to, find these low-hanging fruit that we can address now. And the way it's going to work, again, is the council is going to formulate a plan and present it to the governor, and hopefully we can move from there, right? And it could be as easy as just an executive order, or we can work with the legislature through policy changes. But that's why it's important for the council to ensure that we do the legwork, to include the statistical analysis, the data, so that way when we present it, everything is inclusive, and whoever the audience is, it's really about just incorporating it or making it a legislation for that matter. So.
Well, Mr. Lieutenant Governor, you were talking about one plan. Is it really? You've only got like you said, about a year before this council and the next election and all that. But is there time to wait for one big master plan? I mean, some of these things, like the little small things, you can fire out quicker, though, right?
So no, we're not waiting for one big plan. Like I said, there's a lot of products already before us, and that's one of the things that this council want to do is just look at some of these issues that already we've known for the past couple of years, that we can actually make those changes right off the back. So we may not have to wait 6 months. We can, if this council goes over a lot of these products, we may have a recommendation in the next 30 days. So it's not necessarily to try and generate a master plan for that's not the intent with this group. The intent here is to start addressing issues that are currently facing our CNMI, so that we can make it a prominent destination for tourists, a prominent destination for investors.
Just like what the President earlier said, pick the low-hanging fruit. So can you give us an example? For example, what is the lowest fruit that we can pick up right away?
What the low-hanging fruits are will be announced soon, and we don't want to speak prematurely. This was our first organizational meeting. There are a lot of great ideas, I know, in the heads of the council members as well as the lieutenant governor, and so very shortly we'll start sharing with the public and start getting some collaboration on these low-hanging fruits. But like the lieutenant governor said, we're not going to wait, regardless of election cycle, regardless the time. We are in crisis, and we need to act now and start executing. One thing, if I may add to your earlier question about the difference. So I was in the prior GSEA, and what I had recommended to the governor and lieutenant governor is to keep the council a little bit more lean, a bit smaller, for efficiency, and then to have more private sector. In fact, we have almost all private sector on the council. And then the other thing that I'm pleased to share is the first time we have our delegate's office, Delegate Hines, participating in the council through Mandy Leon Guerrero, not as a council member, but as a resource. Some of the initiatives that we'll be pursuing require federal policy, and so we definitely are going to be engaging with her office.
And speaking of low-hanging fruit, we went around, talked to a few community members, many of them also government workers who'd like to remain anonymous. But Lieutenant Governor, maybe this is for you. There's this growing sentiment that the cuts, especially starting today, should start from the top, especially for those who've had salary increases since the last austerity. So what's your response to those who are calling for cuts from the top?
I like that question, and honestly, that's something that the governor and I can, look at coming into this austerity. There's really the previous cut or the previous increase that the governor made. He withdrew that increase, and the reason for that is that initially when the governor came in, he said that this increase was proposed right when he became the governor. Right, he was trying to actually push his chief of staff to be the point man, but the problem is that the routing process kind of took long, and by the time the notification went to the legislature, the time was kind of not in favor of the action. But he recognized that through the outcry, and he made that that decision to withdraw that nomination. So I commend him for that. Again, there's no right answer to a lot of these issues that we're facing, but the point is that we're addressing them as we go, and we're trying to make these cuts as we go. It's unpopular today, but the point is that we've inherited a lot of these issues, and no finger pointing. It's time to take action.
So, Mr. Lieutenant Governor, a lot of the things that people are talking about, first they jump out about salaries and all that stuff. But what are some of the practical changes that you've already started to make in your office to reflect the austerity measures?
For example, time and attendance, right? For just my staff, they're alternating. For example, for example, my PSD, I've had them adjust their schedule so that they're not incurring so much overtime, right? It's unfortunately some of the events that I do have, I need them there, right? But for the most part, it's not going to be 60-hour overtime, 40 hours overtime, right? There's going to be adjustment that's made to include my staff. Some of the salaries are being decreased. I was talking to OMB about this, Miss Virginia Villagomez, and I was kind of trying to recommend to drop my salary, but she's like, it's a constitutional mandate that she can't just change. So that's some of the ways that we're trying to make these cuts, right? To include, for example, just taking the government vehicle on every outing that we have. Sometimes I take my own personal vehicle, although my PSD would say, "Sir, you can't be doing that. We're responsible for you." But these are some of the adjustments that we in our office as well are trying to make. So, thank you.
Are you doing any audits within the executive branch as far as things like that with the vehicles, things that where we can reduce expenses and maybe save a couple of jobs?
Good. Yeah. I don't want to get ahead of the governor's office or the executive branch. I think we could just keep it to questions on the council.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a question for the council. Are we, this council, as you said, Lieutenant Governor, dates back to the 80s. Are some of our economic plans still reflective of the 80s? Are we still going to pursue tourism as we did in the 80s? Are we still going to pursue investments like we did in the 80s? What's new and exciting and innovative for the people to look to?
No, actually, we're not trying to look at the 80s in terms of some of the plans that were implemented. We're looking at some of the plans that were implemented or was designed back in 2020, 2023, some of the plans that co-chair Joe had worked on. So these are the plans that we're trying to keep it as modern as possible. Of course, something that was beneficial back in the 80s may not be as beneficial today, but that's not to take away from that work.
I'm guessing, are we still going to rely on tourism as the only industry?
I wouldn't go as far as to say we're going to rely on tourism as the only industry. I know there's been efforts to diversify our economy, which is good for everybody, including tourism. But tourism is our product, right? This is what we have right now. We have the infrastructure in place. So, as any business would, you start with what you have, the assets that you have, and we have tourism assets. But there is a lot of effort. In fact, it was shared at our meeting. CEDA was part of our meeting, and he shared the significant amount of interest from foreign investors in light of the tariffs that are upon many countries. He's getting an overwhelming, in his words, an overwhelming response. Of course, these things take time, and as you know, there are some industries that are right at the I guess the turning point of making some announcements, and so we look forward to those. But tourism will be as important, I think, for the foreseeable future, but supplemented by all these other industries. So.
There is some movement for diversification currently, but of course, what the council does not want to do is we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, right? We want to make sure that these investment actually land and stick, so that when we present it to our people, it's actually something that they can see firsthand. One of the things that we mentioned during some of these meetings, right, is that we don't want to just keep putting out false hope, and then our people are gonna get excited about something, and then these investment pulls out, and then it's gonna be it's the blame is gonna sit on the council. So what we want to do is we want to ensure that these investment activity actually sticks, and they're actually moving here, groundbreaking, and then we announce it. And again, one of CJ's work here is really he's gonna stay in front of this by communicating with the media and making sure he puts out press release on some of the products that we do that does come out of the council.
Mr. Lieutenant Governor, speaking of the economy, part of the austerity measures was reducing folks all the way across the board, including federally funded positions. Now, those are positions that aren't funded out of our local fund and everything. So if those if those positions are reduced also, doesn't that just take money away from our economy that would be flowing for people paying bills and their fuel?
Actually, no, it doesn't. If we're shifting it to operational, and we're spending it out in our community to pay off operational expenditures, for example, utilities, fuel. So it's really not. All what we're trying to do, or what this administration is trying to do, is they're trying to just be fair across the board, right? That's initially why they pulled that increase, right? That's why the governor pulled that increase, essentially, is to make sure that there's nobody getting an increase. I can tell you that some of the personnel actions that were being routed to the administration is being sent back, because there's going to be no promotions, WGI, or any of that sort, especially now when we're struggling financially. So again, thank you guys for this opportunity. This is it for me.
When can we expect a budget?
Can I just have one question?
Today?
What kind of firms are we you mentioned earlier that there were some investment firms that are interested in our CNMI. What are these? What industry? Is this manufacturing? Is this a new industry? What are the inquiries, and are they foreign based or US based? And are we pushing our policy for free trade zone as one of our selling points?
There is investment opportunities, right? I can say that there's manufacturing plants that are interested, and I don't want to get in front of that, but there are manufacturing opportunities to avail to this tariff, right? And these plants are getting ready right now. They're on ground. They're working their way. They're trying to work with CEDA, and they're trying to get all their permitting situation situated so that they can announce their groundbreaking.
Are they foreign based or US based?
They are actually, the owner is from Japan, but they have a plant in California. They have a plant in Asia, so I don't know how you would classify them.
And would that play also our free trade policy into the equation in regards to bringing these investors?
Absolutely.
Question for me.
Last question.
Okay, last question.
Last question, gentlemen. I want to answer all of you guys' questions, but we do have other engagements, so go ahead.
Was the casino industry discussed during the meeting today? And at some point, will the owners of Team K be part of the GSEA?
No, it's not. Today's discussion was really just to highlight the priorities, right, and to actually formulate the body, the Governor's Economic Council. But to answer your question, there is a legislation right now that the administration is working with the legislature to try and amend to work with, you know, some of these investors that are interested in casino. But again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because again, we still need to make sure that, you know, the legislature's up on board with this, and then we can make those announcements.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone. Readout will go out on what was discussed in our meeting today, and future plans for the council. My email is always open. You have my email to kind of send media inquiries, and I'll get with the co-chairs and we'll address those accordingly. Great. Thank you so much.
Your search for unbeatable internet speeds is over. Visit Docomo Pacific today and sign up for as low as $60 a month, so you can experience our fast, reliable internet speeds for yourself. Docomo Pacific, better together.